now. There you go.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Discovering Buddhism. This is class 2 of 6 for How to Develop Bodhichitta with Don Brown. And that's really all the announcements I have. We are both live streaming via YouTube as well as on Zoom for those of you who are joining us that way. So it might be a little tricky. If you do have a question on Zoom and you're on Zoom, you can just type that into the chat box. I will be monitoring that through class. And if you're watching live streaming, there's also a place where you can ask a question on live chat on the YouTube channel. So I'll be monitoring that as well. So feel free to type those in. And we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Pardon? I'm on. Hello. Does this thing work? Does this thing need to work?
You are working on Zoom. I don't hear you this way, though.
I don't know if this has...
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you got it now.
Okay. Because that's the stream, isn't it? Now, I can see this stupid, but that's enough. Hello. Glad to see you. I hope everybody's staying healthy out there and using your protection, as we say in the business. Anyway, those masks are great. I think more and more people are becoming, more careful. Seems like to me more people are wearing masks. So anyway, we're going to try to end up a little bit, probably shortly, not much after 8 o'clock. And so it's good to start out by doing some prayers, and then we'll do a sort of a mindfulness of the breath, meditation, let people kind of settle in. But it's also good to take a few breaths and set your motivation even for saying these prayers. We're going to do the text. Is it going to pop on the screen?
I can try to get it up.
All right. The 8 verses of mind training. It's actually not always thought of as a bodhicitta text, but it is totally how a bodhisattva thinks, somebody who's actually realized bodhicitta. And for anybody who's new, the name of this course is called Developing or Cultivating Bodhichitta. So again, as I said last week, bodhicitta is this amazing attitude. In fact, I might even find this thing. Anyway, many great teachers have talked about how if you took all the teachings of the Buddha and kind of put them into one package, it would be all about bodhicitta. It's that important. And the way that this mask is protecting us, or me, particularly, when I'm at my work, walking around doing whatever, bodhicitta is a great protection for the mind because it is the absolute antidote to selfishness and self-centeredness, because it's all about others, it's about cherishing others, it's about having compassion for others. So with that kind of mindset, we're going to do recite the 8 verses and see if I can. I memorized them and then I forgot them and memorized them again and forgot them, but I know what they are.
Can you see if you can mute your computer? Not Zoom, but your actual computer.
Mute the computer. Oh yeah, over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's turning it off. Try the other one.
How do you do that?
On the other side.
Oh,
this
here.
one maybe?
There we
There,
go.
okay.
Does that help?
And you're doing 8 verses?
Yeah, we're going to do 8 verses of mind training. Now I don't know if you can see this or not, but we'll go kind of slow. I might even say a few things, or I may say a word or two as a way of explanation, but we'll just do these together. And yeah. So a really famous text, and the Dalai Lama's given many teachings on it. So the first verse, determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit for all sentient beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I shall hold them most dear at all times. When in the company of others, I shall always consider myself the lowest of all, and from the depths of my heart hold others dear and supreme. Vigilant, the moment a delusion appears in my mind, endangering myself and others, I shall confront and avert it without delay. Whenever I see beings who are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by violent negative actions and suffering, I shall hold such rare ones dear as if I had found a precious treasure. When out of envy others mistreat me with abuse, insults, or the like, I shall accept defeat and offer the victory to others. When someone whom I've benefited and in whom I have great hopes gives me terrible harm, I shall regard that person as my holy guru. There's some really good stuff here. Very provocative, some of these points, but very profound. In short, both directly and indirectly, I do offer every happiness and benefit to all my mothers, and I shall secretly take upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering. So that has to do with Tong Lin. We did that last week, talked about it last week. So read it again. In short, both directly and indirectly, do I offer every happiness and benefit to all my mothers. So mothers is kind mother sentient beings, it's universal living beings. And I shall secretly take upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering, undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly concerns. By the way, those are the things that we're addicted to. All the good stuff. We're addicted to the 4 positive things, and we're addicted to not having the 4 negative things. So it's all about attachment and how it causes our whole lives revolve around that, and causes no way to be happy as long as we're attached in those ways. So undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly concerns, may I, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, so that has to do with emptiness, be released from the bondage of attachment. So let's sit up straight and start out. If you're in a chair, you're supposed to sit with your feet flat, both feet on the ground. Your hands can be just on your thighs or folded in your lap, whatever's comfortable. You can have your eyes closed or at half-mast, as some people say. Where you just let your eyes open a little bit, you let a little bit of light in, and that helps keep the mind alert, just letting a little bit of light in. But if you can keep your mind alert back with your eyes closed, if distractions are too much, then close your eyes. And you can just bring your attention to your breath. We're not. If you want to start out by doing 9-round breathing, you're welcome to do whatever practice helps you get settled in, or just counting the breath. Usually we go out and in is 1, out and in is 2, out and in is 3, like that, up to 10. Or just be aware of the breath and let the mind settle in to that awareness. As you're watching the breath, be mindful of how the breath is changing from moment to moment. And you want to be, as much as possible, fully engaged with each breath, every aspect of the experience of breathing as the air comes in and goes out. Some people will follow it at the tip of the nose. Other people, the rising and falling of the abdomen. Other people, just the whole experience of inhalation and exhalation. Being aware of that, noticing how it's changing, and then oftentimes the mind will be taken off on a tangent. You might try to write a little mental essay in the middle of the meditation, and when you catch yourself doing that, you can just notice that, and you have two options actually. One is to just have some sort of bare awareness of that, noticing that you've been distracted, and that gradually whatever's going on in the mind, it changes, and then you're back to the breath. Or you can notice your mind distracted, and then bring it back. You're aware of it, and you just bring it back gently but firmly back to the experience of breathing. Meanwhile, you want to also be aware of your body and any areas of tension. Oftentimes, if there's like fear or anger or attachment or whatever's going on in the mind, there's some corresponding experience in the bodies. It's very important to be aware of not only the content of your mind, but the physical experiences that you might be having from moment to moment. You can relax your awareness and bring your attention back. So last week, I don't know, does anybody have any questions? I guess people can type in there. Yeah, if you did, that's fine. If you have a question from last week or anything going on, happy to try to answer. All right. So anyway, this is a really interesting time for all of us, I think. Those, it doesn't, being in the medical field and things like that, you always wonder. But I think you can, walking down the aisle at Harris Teeter, you wonder, does that person have the virus? Are they are they the ones that are going to give it to me? And so I think in some ways we're more aware, at least I'm experiencing this. I don't know about other people, but I'm more aware spontaneously of how precious life is and how quickly it can be taken away, by this really vicious virus that is killing a lot of people. And so anyway, it's something that we all have to be mindful of. We have to, pay attention to washing your hands and wearing your mask and keeping your social distances and things like that. Just simple little things can make the difference between life and death. And but in a real way, from a Dharma perspective, we think of awareness of impermanence in two ways. We think of it as the subtle impermanence that we were talking about a moment ago. In meditation, how things are like the mind is changing moment to moment, our body's changing moment to moment. We're having momentary experiences of impermanence all the time. And then we talk about, gross impermanence, particularly with regard to this body. And it's said in the teachings that we should remember impermanence in the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of our meditation or our practice. In the beginning, so we'll pay attention, and in the middle, so we'll pay attention, and in the end, so we'll do a proper dedication. So the first, when we do meditation on death and impermanence, the first one is that everybody dies, or death is definite. Sorry, death is definite. Yeah, so everybody dies. So we're. I'm not trying to be morbid, by the way. Here, this meditation I find incredibly inspiring and encouraging, and puts things in perspective. So it's just the awareness that yes, nobody's ever lived forever, no matter whether we're young or old or anywhere in between. It's going to happen. It's going to happen to us. Nobody has ever lived forever. And with, it's just everybody's going to eventually have to face their own demise. And are we ready for that? Or is our mind prepared to die, peacefully, calmly? Actually, a controlled death is. Lama Zopa used to send out Christmas cards saying, "May you die with a happy mind." That was an interesting Christmas card, but that's really, may you die peacefully. So, death is. So we're all going to die. So when we remember that, the conclusion to that is, I'm going to die, so I must practice the Dharma. Okay. That's the conclusion to the recognition that we're going to die. Then the fact that we could die at any moment. And it seems more relevant now that we're in this sort of pandemic situation where, we could, there is a real sense that no matter how tough we are, how healthy we are, how much young or old or whatever in between, that we could all die, and it could happen at any minute. So death is definite, so we must practice the Dharma. The time of death is indefinite. Could be any moment. Just you breathe in and you breathe out, and then when we don't breathe back in again, that's called death, isn't it? That's called the end. It could happen at any moment. It could happen at any moment. So precious. Life is so precious. How many people got up this morning thinking, oh, it's just another day, but now they're on to the next life. This life is over and they're on to the next life. So death could happen at any moment. So we must practice the Dharma, and we must do it now. So that's the conclusion of the time of death is indefinite. It could happen at any moment. So I must practice the Dharma now. And then the last one is that the only, I like the word, I like to use this term currency, okay? The only currency that we can spend at the time of our death is what I call spiritual currency. It's the imprints that we place on our minds, the work that we've done to purify our negative tendencies, our negative karma, and the positive imprints that we placed on our mind. That's the only thing that's going to help us at the time of our death. It's not going to be our friends and family, no help. Our body, absolutely no help. It's like, why are we dying? It's like our body's giving up on us. So body's not going to help. It's this thing that we spend so much time taking care of and taking it on great vacations and feeding it and giving it pleasurable experiences. Not going to be of any help. The money we have in our bank account, friends and family, all of that stuff, no benefit at the time of death. Only thing of any help at the time of death are the spiritual imprints, the spiritual currency that we have, that we've earned in this lifetime through our practice. And so the conclusion here is, so there are three conclusions. I must practice the Dharma, I must do it now, and I must practice the Dharma purely, untainted by negative mind states, untainted by false Dharma, like that. But the pure Dharma, we must practice the pure Dharma. And to have access to pure Dharma, we have to have teachers that are part of a lineage that have come down from the time of the Buddha, and they have heard valid teachings from valid teachers. They've realized those teachings and they're passing it on to us. So those are really important to remember how precious this time is, the time to just to hear the teachings of the Buddha is so rare and precious opportunity. So just contemplate that for a moment. Just do a 1-minute analytical meditation on death is definite. I must practice the Dharma. The time of death could be any moment. It's indefinite. I must practice it now. And the only thing of any benefit at the time of death is our spiritual practice. So I must practice the pure Dharma. So there's going to be a lot of repetition in this class, just because that's the nature of, it doesn't have to be a lot of repetition, but I want to go over and over and over some key points so that there's a chance that they can seep into our mind stream and actually make a difference in our day-to-day life. Because like I said, the best protection, the very best protection that we could have is realization of bodhicitta, this altruistic intention to become enlightened based on love and compassion. And so last time we talked about the three principles of the path. There's a lot of ways that I like the way Robina talks about it. She talks about packages, the way it's packaged. There's the lower scope, the middle scope, and the higher scope. The higher scope having to do with being motivated by bodhicitta, and then in the three principal aspects of the path, which I think we probably hear more teachings. We hear it packaged more that way. The first principal aspect of the path is we call it. We use the term renunciation, and I like Alex Berzin translate that. That sounds like it's a strange translation according to some people. Alex translates it as the determination to be free. Okay, it means, in essence, that we determined to be free of what? Determined to be free of suffering. So there's some implication here that, number one, we recognize that we're suffering, okay, and that, number two, it's even possible to be free of suffering. Because a lot of us don't think that we might say, well, it'd be nice, but maybe the Dalai Lama, maybe Geshe Gelik or Geshe Sampo, maybe Lama Zopa, maybe Robbie Watkins, maybe some people like that, but not me. We all have this spiritual inferiority complex. We don't think we have that potential, but it's really important to have compassion for ourselves. I like to think of renunciation as having compassion for ourselves, realizing, that we do suffer. We do have. There's never a moment that we're completely satisfied, and as Lama Zopa said, dissatisfaction is the worst suffering in samsara, because it's like low-level radiation. It's always going on. We never ever can find a resting place where our mind is satisfied, and so we need to generate an awareness of this kind of mind of dissatisfaction, this unsatisfactory state that we find ourselves in, and then some faith. And this is where faith comes in, and this is where I think the teachers are so important, because when we have teachers such as His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or Lama Zopa Rinpoche, or Lama Yeshe, who I was fortunate enough to get to know, and had great faith in him, or Geshe Gelik, or so many of the great teachers that have, that are great examples, and even lay people that are great examples of the teachings. It gives us faith that, hey, it is possible. Right now my mind's a mess, but it's possible to actually evolve in a really positive way and become potentially even enlightened. If not enlightened, certainly become happier and more satisfied. So having compassion for ourselves and having this determination to be free, so important. So that's the first principal aspect of the path, I think, really has to do with having compassion for ourselves and this determination that may I be free of suffering and its causes. Okay? May I be free of suffering and its causes. Then bodhicitta, the second principal aspect of the path, really has to do with, others' suffering. There are two key points to bodhicitta. One is the wish that that all beings, including me, can be free of suffering. And then the other key point is the method to accomplish that, to help beings and me stop my suffering is to become enlightened, which seems like so far out there, so like it seems so impossible. But we have, again, we have the examples of our teachers, which can inspire us. We can see our mind, particularly if we practice the Lam Rim sincerely over weeks and months and years. The Dalai Lama says, don't judge your practice in a week or a month. Look at it in terms of years. Like, how do you feel now compared to like 2 years ago or 5 years ago? Have you seen your mind evolving in a positive direction? So having the example of our teachers gives us some hope that this potential to become enlightened is actually a real potential that we all possess. So it's not something. It's not a place. I think it's pretty easy for us to want. Well, I want to be free from suffering, but the thought of I need to get in. I want all beings to be free of suffering, universal living beings to be free of suffering, and I'm going to become enlightened to help to make that happen. That is not a natural place for us to go to. So we have to actually effortfully train our mind in this direction. Now there are two ways to do this. There are two main streams two teachings that have come down from the Buddha, two lineages. One came down from Atisha, and then we're going to do this a little bit tonight. It's called the seven cause and effect meditation, and that one requires some faith. In fact, it requires a lot of faith in rebirth. Okay, that our mind is when we start talking about consciousness and mind, and those of you who've done the earlier classes in Discovering Buddhism, we talk about mind is like this moment of mind was preceded by a former moment of mind, and that former moment of mind preceded by another former moment of mind. You keep going back, and you go back, and you go back until when the first moment of this life, and this body is physical, but mind's not physical. So the first moment of mind of this life was preceded by former moment of mind of a former life. And so that is the best, so we use that kind of logic to go back and say that mind is beginningless. There was no first moment of mind. Every moment of mind had to be preceded by another formless moment of mind. And so we go back and back and back and back and back. So from the beginning of beginningless time, we have had countless, we've been born countless times, and in every lifetime we've had mothers, we've had brothers and fathers and sisters, and we've all been family. So this is important, an important thing to think about when we're going to do this seven cause and effect meditation. But anyway, so we have that lineage to come in through Atisha, and then the other lineage, mainly through Shantideva, is called exchanging self with others. And that one's the one that really has that really depends a lot on the practices of Tonglen, which I want to be the main meditation practice for us during this course. We may not get much time, but we'll do a little bit tonight. But Tonglen, which is giving and taking, giving and taking, giving. I like, I've used the example that Easter's just come and gone, and a lot of us were raised in the Christian tradition, and Christ was, there's at least as the story goes, he was on the cross, he was dying on the cross, and he's basically saying, I'm taking on the suffering of all living beings, okay? And I'm giving everlasting life, okay? So it's like Tong Lin, a little bit different, but it's the same thing. It's, in this case, taking on the suffering of all living beings is like what we would call, great compassion, and giving all living beings happiness and its causes, we'd call great love. So here's Christ, I think, on the cross, teaching Tong Lin, taking on the suffering of all beings, giving all beings happiness and the causes of happiness. So just something to think about. So that's, so the other stream coming from Shantideva is called equalizing and exchanging self with others. And we combine that into about 11 or 12 meditations, and we'll do that hopefully many times in this course. We'll go through all of these. We'll combine these two streams into one sort of longer meditation, and the fruition of that meditation is the generation of bodhicitta. And we have to practice it over and over and over again, because it's not the natural place that our mind goes. We don't naturally think that we want to dedicate our life completely to others. But this is where this is taking us. So, any questions up to this point right now? You can type them in if you want to, or not. Okay, good. All right, so so last week I asked people to meditate on equanimity. So what does that mean? Let's see. Yeah. So the equanimity.
So
Don, pardon?
there's a question.
Yeah. What is it?
So there is a question.
All right.
It says, I may not remember this correctly, but I have heard when we become determined to become enlightened, really work on purification, meditation, etc., a lot of trouble can come. In fact, I'm seeing a lot of intense suffering going on, not so much for me, but for family members. Can you comment on this? Because it is rather discouraging.
Yeah. Good question. Good question. I don't want to discourage anybody, but it actually, I want to go back to what was written on the wall at the old Kadampa Center that was in the basement before we moved here, and it was there was a line. It was a quote from Lama Zopa, and it said, "Cherish problems. They are the source of all of our past and future happiness. Not only future in this life, but future life's happiness." And so, so I've heard that I've heard teachers say that, when you start studying Buddhism, and particularly when you take refuge in Buddhism, all of a sudden all kinds of problems start coming your way, and I think some people might be discouraged by that. But the point of it, I think the point is that we need to train our mind to see problems as opportunities to practice, not necessarily problems as things to freak out about, avoid, because we can't avoid them. Remember the 8 worldly concerns we taught in these 8 points of mind training. We talked about how we're attached to deliciousness. We all want pleasure and gain and fame and praise, but we also want to avoid pain and loss and disgrace and blame. We can't get away from it. We can't get away from the hardships in life. It is part of life, and so to learn how to use that to train our mind when we experience hardship, to say, oh, that's part of the teaching, isn't it? That's the First Noble Truth. That's the truth of suffering. Yeah, the Buddha said that that's part of life. And physical and mental pain is not necessarily suffering. Suffering is what happens, is a mental thing. Physical and mental pain does not equal suffering. There are people that can experience pain and do it equanimously, can actually accept their suffering, and in some ways even joyfully accept suffering. So it's a difficult, it's really, really hard. But these are the teachings on Lojong, which this class is not going to get into to a large extent. I mean, there's a whole thing in module in Discovering Buddhism on Lojong, where we imagine difficult situations and see them as opportunities to practice, opportunities to develop humility. What are some of the benefits of suffering? Some of the benefits of suffering, it teaches us humility. It reminds us of the First Noble Truth. The Buddha said, hey, we're caught in this process of uncontrolled causation, and we're going to suffer. But there's a way out. So don't forget about that. There's a way out. It teaches us what not to do. If we experience something like somebody yells at us, that's a great teaching. Don't yell at people. When somebody gets angry at us, don't get angry at people, because we're just setting into motion a karmic loop that's going to come back and bite us. So we can use our suffering to train our mind. But it is not easy. And right now is very difficult. It's very difficult to see the people we love suffer, and it's difficult to experience our own suffering. But it is part of the human condition. It's what we need to learn how to work with it, and that's one of the beauties of Dharma practices, that we can learn to work with our suffering. So I need to go on to this next, so we get through the 7 points here. So the first part of any meditation on generating compassion has to start out with equanimity. Remember that. We have to, and we're not talking about, when we talk about compassion from the Mahayana Buddhist perspective, we're talking about universal compassion. So that's not just for our family and friends, which of course, when we see our children suffer, oh my God, immediately, we think, oh, may you be free of suffering. I mean, by the way, when we define compassion as may you be free of suffering and the causes of suffering, that's not compassion, is it? Compassion is the feeling that if it could speak, this is what it would say. Compassion is a feeling that may you be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. Okay? And of course we feel that for the people that we love. But then there's all of these universal, there's billions of beings, countless beings that we consider to be like strangers, that we feel indifference toward. And then another group over here, it might be small, but they're people that we feel aversion toward. And so we want to be able to level the playing field, because we want to become, bodhicitta is I want to become enlightened, to liberate universal living beings, not just my friends, not just the strangers, and of course enemies who we don't want to, when they suffer, we usually rejoice, right? We're happy when they suffer. Maybe, hopefully not. But if you don't care about somebody, if you don't feel close to them when they suffer, you rejoice, or you just feel indifferent. So we want to develop equal regard for the 3 categories of beings. So important. So just for a minute, just do that. Remember that meditation we did on equanimity, realizing that these 3 categories of beings, maybe to the left is the so-called friend, the person we're attached to. In the middle is maybe one person symbolic of universal living beings, and somebody that we don't know and we feel indifference toward. And then to the right, somebody that we maybe even hate or would regard as an enemy, at the very least feel a resistance or aversion towards. It actually could be somebody, you know how you walk down the street and you see somebody and you go, you just don't like the way they look, or there's something about them that you feel resistance toward. So just that's enough, okay? But we want to have equal regard for all living beings, and realizing that these are just labels, they're changeable, moment to moment. The friend could become the stranger. The friend could become a stranger. The friend could become an enemy. The enemy could become a stranger or a friend. In other words, all of these labels are just that. They're just labels. They're friend, enemy, and stranger are empty of being friend, enemy, and stranger. They're just mere labels. And in past lifetimes, everybody in every being in all three categories has been family, has actually been like our mother. We use the example, and generally speaking, some people don't have great relationships with their mother. Some people were raised by, their father or whoever. But generally speaking, we use the example of the mother, remembering that all sentient beings have been our mother in some past lifetime. In every previous lifetime, we had to, where we were born, and we've been born countless times. We've always had to have a mother, and the mother of this life has been our mother in previous lifetimes, and in fact has been our mother. And this is kind of where you kind of blows your mind. Okay, just have to. I'm just asking people to creatively align with this kind of line of reasoning. So the mother of this life has been the mother of past lifetimes, countless past lifetimes, countless past lifetimes. Every single person that we now label stranger has been our mother countless times in past lifetimes. Too numerous to count. Because in every life, maybe when we were an elephant, they were our mother when we were an elephant, or when we were an insect, or some kind of animal, or maybe some sort of spirit. We had to have, where we were born into a certain body, in every lifetime we had to have a mother. And so, not only the mother of this lifetime, but universal living beings that we now label, most of them we label as strangers, have been our mother in past lifetimes. And then even the enemy, the person we now label enemy, has been our mother countless times. Countless times has been our mother. Countless times has been incredibly kind to us. But we don't remember, because we can't even remember what we had for breakfast yesterday. So we don't remember past lifetimes. We don't remember. Mind is beginningless, and we've had beginningless rebirths, and in every rebirth we've had a mother, and so we open up our mind to the possibility, just creatively align, that all living beings have been my mother. Or all living beings, depending on whatever relationship was most meaningful to you, could have been your father. All living beings have been my father. But again, we're going to stick with the mom for now. all sentient beings have been my mother. And so you imagine you're surrounded by universal living beings in human form, and you think, all of these beings have been my mother. Not once, but countless times. And if we do, these are hard meditations to do, even though it's so simple to understand it, but to get a feeling. When it's said that when you do this meditation well, let's say you're walking down the street without even knowing it, you feel connected to strangers. You feel connected to everyone. You know how the Dalai Lama, he says, everybody's like family to me. I feel like close to everyone. So it's that this is the fruit. One of the fruits of this meditation is feeling connected to all living beings. Just connected. Okay? Just connected. The next meditation, and there's some of it here on the board, recalling their kindness. So now we go back and we remember we focus on our mother of this lifetime. And you try to remember, like, envision your mom when she was the age that she was when you were born. And imagine, that she's conceiving you, and and that first moment where the sperm and the egg meet, your consciousness comes in from the bardo from a previous lifetime, and boom, there you are, this little tiny cell, and maybe now multiple cells, and gradually you begin to grow into a peanut. I can remember getting sonograms of my daughter Lillian. We didn't do so much with the other ones, but I have pictures of Lillian when she was a peanut. And then a peanut that looked like a person, with little arms, buds coming out, and facial features coming out, and so forth. And so, as your mom took care of you in her body, and she tried to eat right, and she tried to take care of herself, and hopefully she did, we're going to say she did the right thing. She ate right and she took care of herself. But I can tell you, from the very moment she found out that she was having you, she was overjoyed. She thought, oh my gosh, there's a living being in me. There's somebody in me. There's a baby in me. Immediately, love, she loved you. From the moment she knew you were there, she felt this deep sense of love. And, and I can tell you this from, many of you know I'm a physician, and there are many women who've had spontaneous abortions, like 6 weeks into the pregnancy, they lose the pregnancy, and they feel, it's almost like the feeling of having had that spontaneous abortion. It's like a real loss, the loss of a real child. They feel so sad about that. So we know that our mother loves us, even from the moment, as we grow in the womb, and as we get bigger, and she becomes more and more uncomfortable. We get to your first trimester, second trimester, into the third trimester, and she's like heartburn all the time, and she can't sleep, and she's walking around. She's got back pain because she's got to deal with all this weight that's in front of her, and she's probably gone through the first trimester a little bit of nausea and vomiting and being sick, and then the second trimester, but still loves us, cannot wait to see us. Third trimester, cannot get comfortable even for a moment. Has to turn from side to side. Has such a hard time getting any good rest. And then if we're lucky enough to have gone to full term, then the pain comes, and then the labor pains come, and starts out a little bit of pain in the front, and a little bit of like Braxton Hicks contractions, right? These little ones, these warm-up contractions. And then all of a sudden, ooh, feel it in the back now, front and back. That hurts. Ouch. And then they start coming more frequently. And she's still, all she can think about is you. She knows that she deals with the pain because she knows that she still has this really profound love and affection for you, even though you're the cause of her pain, in a sense. So gradually, the birthing process goes, and the cervix dilates, and that's painful, and then finally, the baby's coming out, and she's pushing, because Robbie and I have delivered hundreds of babies in our training, and it's an amazing process to experience the birth of babies and to see how mothers go through all of this suffering many times. Unless nowadays we have epidurals, but back in the day, a lot of difficulty getting that baby out. And then as soon as the baby's born, no matter how much suffering the mom's experienced, you take that baby and you put the baby on the mother's tummy, and the baby suckles on the breast, and the mother's so happy. All of that suffering didn't matter at all. She cannot think of anything except her deep, profound love that she has for this baby. And there's like no thoughts at all about what it took to get there. Just now she has this great love for the baby. And then we look at how much, the teachings say that the amount of milk that our mothers, not only in this lifetime but past lifetimes, have given us is like oceans of milk. Oceans of milk our past mother, sentient beings have given us, just like our mother of this lifetime has given us so much, fed us from her body, changed diapers, couldn't sleep, couldn't sleep because whenever we were upset, she had to take care of us. She had to get up and change our diaper and feed us and put us back to sleep. And so many sacrifices our mom went through in the first year or two, or really for a whole life. But in that first year of life, amazing sacrifices that moms go through to take care of their child. Without your mom, you wouldn't be alive today. I don't care what your relationship is like with your mom. Without her, you wouldn't have your body, and you wouldn't have survived. You wouldn't have survived. So we have so much kindness that our mom showed us, and she took care of us. She fed us. She dressed us. She bathed us. She taught us how to walk and talk, and took us. And then we kind of fast forward this a little bit. Took us to school. That first day we went to school, she was so distraught. She said, "Oh, my baby, was going to school for the first time." She felt a real sense of loss, like now, her child is growing up. And then all the way through school, whenever we had successes, she experienced happiness and joy and shared in our successes. And that whenever we suffered, she felt sadness and had some experience of suffering, and so on. And right on through to high school and even college and beyond, even as an adult, our parents, even today, if you're lucky enough to have your parents alive, your parents think about you all the time. Parents, I have 3 girls, and I know that they're, even though we have our moments, it's a little bit rocky sometimes, but never for a second do I not love them, do I not have this deep and profound experience of love. And that's what a parent, a mother, has for her children, this strong sense of love, wishing that they could be happy. And now, we and to not suffer. And we imagine that the love that that our mother showed us the love that she showed us. All living beings have shown us that same love. Universal living beings. Not just the friends, not just the strangers, not just, even the enemies. All living beings have shown us that incredible love. So that's recalling the kindness of universal mother sentient beings. Recalling their kindness. Think, every living being, even the insects, that person, that faceless person in the elevator, the person driving on the other, in front of me, behind me, on the other side of the road, I don't remember it, but they've all been as kind to me as my mother of this life. Lama Yeshe used to call, it's kind of weird, but he used to call everybody kind mother. He said, or mother, or dear. He used to call everybody dear. Dear, kind mother sentient beings. He used to use that kind of language all the time. Okay? So now we remember that everybody's been our mother, everybody's been kind to us, and now we develop the wish to repay that kindness. Okay? And so it's not somebody else's responsibility. When somebody's shown me has been kind to me, it's not somebody else's job to repay the kindness. It's my job. It's my responsibility. You might have a problem with this one. Some people do. But this is the way the teachings are presented, is that all of these universal living beings who've been our mother countless times have shown us immeasurable kindness, and we must repay their kindness. We must repay their kindness. We wish them to be happy, and we wish them to be happy and have the causes of happiness, which is love, which is this what we call not just love, but this is great love. This is love. This is love for universal sentient beings. So imagine you're looking around you, all living beings, all universal living beings in human form, who've been our mother, who've been incredibly kind, and we want to repay their kindness, and we're wishing them happiness and its causes. We're wishing them happiness and its causes. And we know that they're suffering. We know that they're suffering. They're just like us. They've experienced birth, they've experienced sickness, they've experienced aging and death countless times. They've experienced meeting leads to parting. Whenever things come together, they have to separate into their parts. Countless times. They've taken countless bodies in countless lifetimes. And so we wish them to be free of suffering. We wish them to be happy and have the cause of happiness, which is love. But again, remember, if we hate somebody, we're not going to, when we see them suffer or we recollect that they're suffering, we're not going to want them to be free of suffering. We actually might even rejoice. So we need to. So if we've done all of these meditations well, not only do we feel connected to universal living beings, but we feel a spontaneous sense of love and compassion. May they be happy. May these kind mother sentient beings be happy and have the causes of happiness. They've been so kind to me in past lifetimes. May they have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. How wonderful it would be if they could be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. So here we are over here. Love and this great compassion, this universal compassion. Okay? And then what arises from that is a sense of what the Dalai Lama calls universal responsibility. Personal responsibility. It's like, and this one is the Bodhisattva's attitude. And you go, well, this is really ridiculous. This is like off the planet crazy. You know, that anybody would ever have this attitude. But it's a state of mind that the Bodhisattva, from the very get-go, and if we're attracted to the Mahayana vehicle, this is where we need to be going with our meditation practice, is that I take personal responsibility for the happiness of all these kind mother sentient beings. I take personal responsibility for their happiness, to be able to guide them from wherever they are in their spiritual evolution, wherever they are, from suffering, from their present state of suffering, to along the path to happiness, and not just the happiness of, a good day, or just being neutral, or the happiness of nirvana, which is complete freedom from suffering, but to guide them all the way to supreme enlightenment. It's my responsibility. I take personal responsibility for guiding universal living beings, all these kind mother sentient beings, from wherever they are to supreme enlightenment. It is my job. It's not the next person's job. It's my job. They've been so kind to me. It's my personal responsibility. And so this might be a little bit hard to swallow. It is hard to swallow, but it is where we can aspire. If you want to practice at the level of the Bodhisattva path, if you want to practice that path, this is where we need to aspire to be able to sincerely develop this attitude. And it's not based on sentimentality, is it? Not based on sentimental love and sentimental compassion. It's based on genuine love, genuine compassion. May you be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. How great it would be if you could be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And I'm going to take personal responsibility for helping you to be free of suffering and its causes. May you have happiness and the causes of happiness. How wonderful it would be if you could have happiness and the causes of happiness. I take personal responsibility to guide you to not just nirvana, which is freedom from suffering, which is complete bliss, by the way, which is great, fantastic, but supreme enlightenment. It's my job. I'm going to guide you all the way to supreme enlightenment, all living beings. But just sit with that for a minute. It's called the attitude of universal responsibility. The great wish, the supreme wish, the great resolve. And try to get a feeling in your heart of how great it would be to be able to do that. And actually connect with those words. I am personally responsible for guiding all living beings from suffering, from wherever they are, from their state of suffering, all the way to supreme enlightenment. My personal responsibility to help all kind mother sentient beings. And then the last point is bodhicitta, is the generation of bodhicitta. It comes from the realization that as much as we want it, and maybe, from your heart of hearts, you sincerely want it, but we realize we haven't even done it for ourselves. We still are trapped in this cycle of samsaric suffering. We still have to deal with the cycle of birth and sickness and age and old age and death and all the other problems that come along with just being caught in samsara. And so we're still suffering. And so the only way that we can be able to fulfill the wish, this great resolve, is to get enlightened ourselves. So we make this sincere aspiration. I must become a Buddha. I must become fully enlightened. I must eliminate all of my faults. I must develop all of my qualities to be able to accomplish what I want to do in my heart of hearts. I must purify my mind, develop great compassion, loving kindness, power. You have to have, a Buddha has to be very powerful. Buddha has to be able to know others' minds, to read others' minds and know what their spiritual predispositions are so they can guide each individual along their unique journey to supreme enlightenment. So this is bodhicitta. This is bodhicitta based on sincere love and compassion. I must become a Buddha. I must practice the Lam Rim. I must practice the generation and completion stages of Tantra. I must get a qualified master, a teacher who can guide. I must qualify myself. I must practice virtue. There's steps I need to take. I need to sincerely commit. I cannot waste a moment of this precious life, which could be gone tomorrow. Got to use every moment to grow and evolve and to grow toward enlightenment. Might not make it in this lifetime, but let's aspire to that. This is called the wish for enlightenment. Okay? The wish for enlightenment. It's an effortful thing. It is not natural. And you can see it's totally antithetical to self-cherishing selfishness. Totally antithetical to our biggest enemy, which is selfishness. So think about this. We want to stop the suffering of universal kind mother sentient beings and guide them to full enlightenment. And the method to do that is our own enlightenment, our own spiritual evolution. So we got to get our act together. We got to get there ourselves. So that is the method to help others, is to get ourselves together all the way to supreme enlightenment and to create causes, piece together the causes for that to happen. So let your mind rest in that experience of, I must become enlightened in order to free universal kind mother sentient beings. So we make a strong determination that our life, which is so precious, this human life, which is so precious, so rare, so hard to find, and is so fragile. And we have to use as much as we can, as much as you're willing to, and as much as you're inspired to, as much as you are, as much as you're willing to use every moment of this life to develop your mind in the direction of full enlightenment of Buddha, of Buddhahood, of a supreme Buddha, somebody who can truly, that's the person who can help others. That's the person who can make the biggest difference as a Buddha. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great to do that? To be that kind of person? We have examples in this life. Maybe you've had a chance to meet the Dalai Lama. Maybe you've had a chance to meet, some of these extraordinary beings, holy beings, in fact, who just know it, just being in their presence has a profound impact on your mind. Wouldn't it be great to be that kind of person that could make that kind of difference in the lives of others? So bringing your awareness back in the room, wherever you are. So thank you for your attention, and we want to take a moment. Dedication verses. We'll just let everybody do their own dedication, but dedications you can think of it as like what are we dedicating? I mean, in the last hour or so, we planted, we've been like gardeners. I just planted a garden this weekend, by the way. So many really great plants in there, but we just put down by doing the equanimity meditation, we just put the perfect soil in our garden. And then we started planting all of these seeds that will ripen, definitely will ripen in happiness. But we want the seeds to ripen in a specific way as the causes for our enlightenment. So we have to dedicate, our intention is to dedicate the merit, the positive potential of tonight's practices, not only to our happiness, but the happiness of universal, kind Mother sentient beings. So we can visualize that as like sending light out from your heart, like beams of light, billions of beams of light going out in all directions and touching universal living beings and giving them happiness and the causes of happiness and freedom from suffering and its causes. And dedicating it to their enlightenment. Okay, so thank you for your attention, those of you who are still there. I'll warn anybody outside. The meditations I'd like for you to do this next week are to continue to do the again, the equanimity meditation. You can you can abbreviate. Excuse me. You can abbreviate the equanimity meditation. Start out by doing that briefly, and maybe you only have 5 or 10 minutes. So even if you're just touching on these points mentally, that's a good start. But you can abbreviate the equanimity meditation, but then go through each of these other ones, recognizing beings as your mother, recalling their kindness, repaying their kindness, love, compassion, personal responsibility, bodhicitta. So go through this 7 cause and effect practice for developing bodhicitta. It's said, the Dalai Lama says, this is the hardest one to get. It seems so simple, so straightforward, but it's very difficult to really get it in your heart of hearts. But it's so important because we're going to combine pieces of this meditation with exchanging self with others next week and in the following week. So it's very important to become familiar with this practice. So thank you. Goodbye. So Linda? Yeah? See ya.
So I unmuted everyone so we can all say goodbye and actually hear each other.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Now what do I do? Okay. Mute. Bye-bye. I can see everybody. Okay. I have I got a new version updated. What is that? I hope that's Zoom. It is.